Yomon period, which is pretty much Japan before this kid was born, was the time where nobody really cared about how their house looked and was only worried about making sure they ate, drank, and kept their kids alive. The houses were made of wood and straw, so really, anything you could find on the ground without thinking too hard, and inside, there was a pit, which is why they were sometimes called pit-dwelling houses. The Yayoi period looked exactly like the Yomon period, except it was categorized by its intense rice farms and communities instead of lonely dirt holes. The Asuka period was a revolutionary time for Japanese architecture. It was the time when Japan knocked on China's door and asked, "Hey, can I borrow your sugar?" And by sugar, I mean like 90% of your entire culture. Okay, thanks, bye. And they got those sexy curves. They also got Buddhism, which sparked many temples and shrines with 3 different styles: Shinmei, Taisha, and Sumiyoshi. A really cool one you can visit is the Tashagu Shrine in Nikko, which was built in 1617. Simply magnificent. Alright, now let's talk about temples. There were very important temples. Remember these names and locations for the next test: Shiteno at Osaka, Wakakusa near Nara, and Asuka at Asuka. Also, the Wakakusa temple exploded. Most temples were made of roof tiles, stone, and cryptomerid wood and stood up by vertical wood pillars secured on stone bases, which are essential with a capital Shi. Around this time, the first permanent capital was set up in Nara at Hijky in the year 710. Then people started making very important palaces for very important people known as emperors. The current empress, Jemai, lives here, the Hij Palace. Let's jump a couple hundred years for time's sake and go straight to the Edo period, which was from the 14th century to the 16th century. This was the time period when Japan was going through a civil war and leaders started going crazy with building castles that were originally for fortification, but became the center of government and status symbols for the provincial lords. The war ended in the late 1500s. Due to wars, only 12 original castles stand from the hundreds that were built. The primary material for castle construction used to be wood, but most of the rebuilt castles were constructed using ferro concrete, and thus they look authentic from the outside but not from within. Oh, is it already time to talk about samurai? There isn't much to say. The higher the rank you were, the better the house you got. They showed their rank with the size of pillars and the style of their gates. The highest lived near castles with large houses and even larger gardens. Lower ranks lived in smaller houses further from the castles. Townhouses are owned by the middle-class people like merchants and craftsmen. They usually have the store facing the streets, the living quarters behind, and a storehouse, kara, in the back. The Meiji Restoration was when Japan started to make everything a lot more Western. And thus came, are you ready for this? Brick buildings. And here we are, the modern day, where it seems like everyone's competing to make the weirdest buildings that can follow the laws of physics. I mean, look at these beautiful works of art. Look at these. Magnificent. Simply, okay, that one actually looks pretty cool. Yeah, but seriously, who would live in a place like this?